Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson, Andrew Bone. You know what we do Tuesday night? We talk recruiting right here on BamaInsider.com. Let us know where you're coming from in the comment box. Bone, what's up, man? It's Tuesday. You know what we do.
Yeah, happy Tuesday to you, Kyle. Always good to be back on our live show, talking to Alabama fans. I'm sure we'll get a ton of questions tonight. A lot going on in the college football world, but a lot still going on in the recruiting world as well. So very excited to answer questions tonight and talk to everybody who's on listening.
Yeah, a couple of things before we get started. As you know, we got tons of team coverage at BamaInsider.com. So much news to digest over the last 48 hours with the Big Ten pulling out, the Pac-12 pulling out. Big news tonight from our friends at Sooner Scoop. Sources telling Sooner Scoop that the Big 12 is going to push forward. So I think that's a big momentum for the Big 12. You know, the ACC and SEC haven't released official statements, but I think it's a good sign that things are turning. And obviously, people want to play. Another positive note was for the Alabama Crimson Tide football team tonight. Guess who they got to talk to? You see that, Bone?
Oh, yeah.
You posted it, man. I mean, this courtesy of Alabama football, Michael Jordan on Zoom. I mean, can you imagine hearing from the GOAT? I mean, talking about the best all-time competitor. I mean, seriously, who better, who wanted to win more than Michael Jordan? And I was thinking about that. Maybe Kobe, right? I mean, maybe that's why I heard so much. I don't know.
And Alabama had Kobe speak to him, was that 2 years ago?
Yeah. So these are I was kind of getting at the fact that, I mean, this is the caliber that you're getting to speak to Alabama. Michael Jordan tonight, once in a lifetime experience, hearing him speak, of course, and so much respect for Michael Jordan, and really enjoyed The Last Dance. So here to talk recruiting, and I want to get your recruiting questions in just a minute. But Bone, we have to dive into this first. Tumise Adelier decommitted from Ohio State today. Kind of give people the rundown that are just joining in, what that means or what it could mean for Alabama. We tweeted out, the gist of it today with people getting their popcorn ready. What exactly does it mean?
I think everyone has kind of jumped on this whole, thought process that, he decommitted because he's about to commit to another school. I don't necessarily see that. I know that happens with a lot of recruits. I think he's really going to take a step back, evaluate all the programs that are on his list. Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, and I'm sure he'll still look at Ohio State as well. But I certainly think that Alabama's in the race. Last summer, he attended Alabama's camp. Really felt like Alabama was really close to getting his commitment last summer. And he even told me last year before coming back to Tuscaloosa that he was going to there was a good chance that he was going to commit to Alabama after the LSU game. He was going to come back to Tuscaloosa for that game. He ended up coming back for the game, but decided not to commit. Decided to wait a little bit longer. He ends up transferring from Tompkins High School in Katy, Texas, to IMG Academy after his junior season. And all of a sudden, all the talk kind of went to Florida and Ohio State, and Alabama was kind of trailing in the background. He was going to visit Alabama in early April. He had set up a visit. He ends up having to cancel it because of COVID. And when COVID shut the country down, was not able to take a visit, decided to go ahead and commit to the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we've been saying for the last few months, keep an eye on him. I don't think his recruitment's over by a long shot. The schools are still in communication with him. He's still open. There was a good chance that he was going to I've been saying for a while that I felt like he was going to reopen his recruitment rather than just flip to another school, and we saw that happen today. Sam Spiegelman from Rivals, who covers the Texas and Louisiana region for Rivals, he came out and said that it feels like Alabama and Texas A&M are the two schools to watch out for right now with Tumise. So we'll continue to monitor his situation, but I don't think we're going to see anything happen anytime soon. I think we're going to see this process play out a while longer and potentially into the college football season.
Want to give a quick shout out to our Super Chat Hall of Fame members. This is updated. This is the ladder. This is the leaderboard. Tony Hill, he's our member in the Club 100. You also got box seat. Randall Williams continues to climb up. Bombs, always dropping bombs, inching closer to that box seat. So Super Chats, certainly appreciate all the contributors right here on BamaInsider.com. So definitely we'll give you a shout out if you Super Chat tonight. Always appreciate the contributions from our community. Before I get your questions, and I'll feed those to Bone right now. We got a couple guys that are on commitment watch, and two big announcements that'll be on Saturday. Don't know where they're officially going yet, but if you keep up with BamaInsider.com, looks like things are trending well. Let's talk a little bit about Kyrie Jackson, Bone. Where do things stand with him? What do you like about him? What's the latest kind of going into a big weekend, or what could be a big weekend for Alabama?
That's right. Now, Kyrie Jackson is going to be announcing his decision 6 p.m. on Saturday night. Big time cornerback prospect. I know he's rated as a 3-star on Rivals right now, and I think that was just kind of an initial ranking. I got a feeling that's going to change, but obviously we know that Mississippi or junior colleges across the country are not going to be having football this fall, so maybe a little difficult to move them up any higher just because there's no evaluations going on. But, I feel like Alabama believes this is the number one junior college player in the country. I mean, he's a big kid, 6'3", 195 pounds. A lot of people will say, oh, well, 6'3", he's probably going to play safety. Well, I don't think so. I think Alabama really likes him as a cornerback. Got great ball skills. What impresses me most about him is just his physicality. He'll come up and absolutely pop you. So I think Alabama's got a great chance to land his commitment. He has the top 4 of Alabama, Oregon, Oklahoma, and Florida. But I think he's going to Alabama, and we'll find out on Saturday night.
All right, so that's Kyrie Jackson, who will be announcing on Saturday evening. Also, Monkel Goodwine, very big-time prospect that will be also announcing on Saturday. What's the latest on Goodwine, Bone?
Monkel Goodwine, one of the top 30 players in the Rivals 100, big time prospect out of Maryland. Alabama's recruited the area extremely well over the last several years. All the kids that we know about, that have come from the area, and Alabama's done really well throughout the last several years. I think with Salson Siri leading the charge there on Monkel Goodwine, I think Alabama's got a great chance to land him. Now, there's certainly some other schools that are very involved with him. Kentucky, Clemson, Arizona State, really likes all those schools. But at the end of the day, I think he ends up at Alabama. And the reason I think he ends up at Alabama is because he camped at Alabama last summer. Alabama has really been considered the leader for him, throughout the entire process. Now, Texas A&M certainly has made a strong move for him over the last few months, but at the end of the day, I think he ends up at Alabama. And we don't know a time just yet for his commitment on Saturday, but I got a feeling it's probably going to be a little bit before Kyrie Jackson's 6 p.m. announcement. So we'll continue to keep everyone updated on BamaInsider.com whenever he does set up that time.
Bone, as we look at the class of 2021, and thank you for joining us, please hit the thumbs up button, like and subscribe. We appreciate it. Super chats also welcomed right here to the staff at BamaInsider.com. As we look at the class of 2021, Bone, 16 committed prospects. When you look at the rankings and when you sort them by the star ranking average, you see that Alabama is number 2 behind Ohio State. I'm going to try to pull it up on the screen right now. Kind of talk about this class a little bit and what's your take on what Saban is building from this class of 2021, because we've talked about it several times. It's a very special class.
Well, it is, and I think the biggest thing about the class is hitting your needs. Doesn't matter if you load up at one position or a few other positions, as long as you if you don't hit your needs, then the class isn't going to be very great. So I think as of right now, they're hitting their needs. On the offense side of the ball, two positions that we really stressed early on in the recruiting process where they really needed to land some big fish was offensive line and wide receiver. And you look at the offensive line class, with the Brockermeyer twins, TJ Ferguson and JC Latham. If Alabama doesn't sign another offensive lineman in this class, it's probably still the best offensive line class in the country. And then you look at the wide receiver group with Christian Leary and Ja'Cory Brooks and Ajay Hall, really talented group, especially with Alabama potentially losing 2 first-round receivers next year in Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. It's really big to bring in 3 elite guys, but I think they've got a really good chance to add another elite prospect at this position. And then, you look on the defensive side of the ball, really hitting a home run so far at the linebacker position. 4 linebacker commitments: Dallas Turner, Deontay Lawson, Ian Jackson, and of course Kendrick Blackshire. I think they've done really well there. And think they can still hit some home runs on the defensive line. They've got some big commitments already with Damon Payne and Anquin Barnes. If they can get Monkel Goodwine on board, they're certainly going to have a great defensive line class, and there's still several other guys that are out there.
All right. Now is a great time to post your questions in the comment box for Andrew Bone. I'll give those to Andrew Bone and make sure that we don't double up on the questions. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Real quick, I want to go over a couple things before we get started. So get ready to post your questions for Bone in the comment box. Before we get started, here is another look at our Super Chat Hall of Honor. So definitely shout out to all our Super Chat members right here on BamaInsider.com. And then also we got our loyalty program. You can hit the join button at the bottom of this video, Touchdown Club on the left, Loyalty Club on the right, and of course, all the coverage back at BamaInsider.com. You can get this coverage every single day. You don't have to wait till Tuesday if you're looking forward to that 30-day free trial and wondering how to access BamaInsider.com. Here's how. Post your questions right now in the comment box and watch this short commercial. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. This is how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. First thing you got to do, go to BamaInsider.com and click on the top banner. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create an account, email, username, password. The second thing you're going to do is confirm your subscription. Make sure that the promo code is entered right here. It says promo successful, roll tide. The third thing you're going to do is enter your credit card information. It has to be valid, and don't worry, you're going to get that 30 days free. As you can see, once you've added a credit card, you're going to get the promo code. As you can see right here, it says $0. After that, you got to make sure and cancel within that 30 days if you don't want to be charged that $9.95. But hopefully, you're happy with all the coverage on BamaInsider.com, so you won't need to cancel. Once you're a premium subscriber of BamaInsider.com, you can access Andrew Bone's recruiting board. You can jump on the Talk of Champions message board and have a great time with thousands of Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. We hope to earn your business at BamaInsider.com. All right, so there you have it. Free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. We'll open the show with a question from Alex, and that's asking for an update on JT Tuilamola.
Yeah, good question, Alex. Nothing new really. This week as compared to last couple of weeks. I mean, Alabama's still very much in the picture there. Ohio State, certainly going to be putting a lot of heat on him now after losing to Mise Adelier today. He's certainly going to be a top priority for the Buckeyes. But if Alabama can potentially get him on campus this fall, I really think that they're going to need to get him back on campus at some point. I don't know if visits are going to happen or not. Just not sure at this point. But with Ohio State, Oregon, even Oklahoma, those have kind of been the top three for him that most people would consider. I think Alabama has moved up the list, maybe from outside his top 7 to potentially in his top 5. But I think as of right now, I would still kind of bet on the Buckeyes. But if Alabama can potentially get him on campus, they're going to have a chance. I think they really like him a lot. He's got some interest in Alabama. He visited Tuscaloosa, back before his sophomore year of high school, and there's certainly some interest there. So we'll see if he can potentially get back. But as of right now, I'm still leaning towards the Buckeyes there. All right, thanks for the question, Alex. We appreciate it. Bombs with the super chat. Thank you so much. Bombs always getting on there, and thank you so much. And he'll jump right to the front of the pack. So thank you so much, Bombs. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, Bombs. Bombs is jumping to the front of the pack with his super chat. Anything on Jalen Milroe, the movement with Tumise Adelier decommitting? I know they're close, so maybe an update on Milroe since we already touched on Tumise at the beginning. Yeah, they are close, former teammates at Tompkins High School. I don't think anything, right just, this moment, just because I don't think Tumise is, favoring one school over the other. Now, I do think Alabama's strongly in the mix there. So if Alabama can potentially get Tumise on their commitment board, he's probably going to be recruiting Jalen Milroe to Alabama. So, nothing just yet. So we'll see, what happens kind of moving forward. But I definitely think, it's certainly something very interesting to watch with Tumise, reopening his recruitment and their close relationship. And obviously their high interest in Alabama. All right. Thank you so much, Bombs. We appreciate it. Nice super chat. We always appreciate what's coming through on that side. So certainly moving up. We got another question, and I believe it was on, let me go through the list real quick. I believe it was on Terry and Arnold, but let me get our poster up real quick so we can
make sure and get him good. Bone, start talking about the latest on Terrion Arnold. Why I pull up this question, kind of what's the latest on Terrion Arnold? You've talked about him many times. Very important target for Alabama.
Yeah, he is, and Alabama currently sitting with 3 defensive back commitments. If they potentially get Kyrie Jackson on board this weekend, that's going to be 4 defensive backs. Terrion Arnold remains one of Alabama's key targets. I mean, Alabama considers him a top priority recruit, but he has not trimmed his list down. I'm very interested to see when that's going to happen. We keep hearing it's going to happen within the next few weeks, that he's going to narrow the list down, narrow the focus down to just a few schools. So we'll see. Update on Terrion Arnold. He heard he's trending to Florida. Not sure about that. Florida certainly a school that is probably high on his list, but you also got to think Florida currently has, I think, 6 or 7 defensive back commitments already in this 2021 recruiting class. So you got to think at some point they're probably going to stop recruiting defensive backs. You can't just have defensive backs in your recruiting class. But I certainly think that Alabama is still very high on his list. You also have to think with Salas and Siri recruiting him, they've got a great shot to land his commitment. But don't see anything happening anytime soon. I think he's going to kind of wait a while, enjoy this process, and see if he can take some visits before making that decision.
All right, we're moving on, and Ronnie's asking for an update on Kool-Aid.
We knew it was coming, didn't we? It's always a question on Kool-Aid. It's typically the same answer. He still has the top 3 of Alabama, LSU, and Auburn. Chad Simmons from Rivals.com spent some time with Kool-Aid last week. I think it was on Thursday or Friday. Had a great interview with him, video interview that's on Rivals.com. So if you haven't had an opportunity to see that yet, go watch it. I think everyone's trying to make their own assumption as to what he's going to do. He's still 100% future cast to Alabama. I still have him predicted to Alabama, but I think it's very close. I think Auburn's strongly in the picture there. I do think LSU certainly in the picture. They've done a great job recruiting him thus far, but just in my opinion, I think he ends up staying in state. As of right now, still predicting Alabama, but would we be surprised if it's Auburn? Probably not at this point. So we'll see, but it's really close to call, and we might see a decision happen sometime this month. It would not be a surprise at all if we saw a commitment. He even kind of hinted at that the other day, saying that he thinks he might be ready to decide something here pretty soon.
All right, this next question is coming in from Jeremiah. Thank you, Jeremiah. We appreciate the question. Do we possibly see Alabama take 2 tight ends? I know we had an update on Jalen Sheed. What's the latest on potentially taking 2 tight ends, Bone?
I think it's just going to be tough this year. You look at Alabama's class right now with 16 commitments, potentially adding 2 more this weekend, getting up to 17. It's going to be, the numbers are just going to be so tight, and taking 2 tight ends may not be a priority in this class. Now, there are 2 guys that they're very high on. You just mentioned Jalen Sheed out of Olive Branch High School in Mississippi, put out his top 3 the other day of Alabama, Ole Miss, and LSU. Robbie Oates is also, we've talked about him several times. I actually have him predicted to Alabama right now with the top 2 of Alabama and Virginia Tech. And we keep having him on commitment watch. We've had him on commitment watch for the last 2 or 3 months. But he spoke with Tony Sukalis, who's been helping me on the recruiting front on BamaInsider the last few months. He spoke with Robbie the other day, and Robbie told him the earliest he sees himself making a decision is going to be in September. So we'll see if Jalen Sheed potentially makes a decision before then. I do think that Alabama would take either one, and I think it comes down to who commits first. I know all the talk has been on Robbie Oates for the last few months, but let's not sleep on Jalen Sheed. I think Alabama really likes him a lot as well, and I think it comes down to who decides to pull that trigger first.
All right, good update, Bone. Appreciate it. And if you want another update on Sheed, you can go back to our YouTube channel. I just dropped a nugget on the 10th, which was yesterday on Monday. So now is a good time to post your recruiting questions for Andrew Bone inside the comment box. I'm running through the list, so make sure we don't double up on any of the questions. Let's see. Do you think some of these Big Ten Bone, how about this? While we wait for more questions to come in, do you think with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 kind of folding out, you're going to see more decommitments? I mean, we saw Tamisa Adelier. Maybe that was just some sort of a coincidence. You've talked about maybe a flip watch for a long time regarding him. But do you think the impact of some of these schools not being able to play, and if the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, if they do move forward, do you think that that's going to impact a lot of this recruiting momentum for 2021?
Well, I think it can. We're kind of in uncharted territory right now where we don't know. We don't know what kind of impact it's going to have. But with them not playing those conferences not playing this season, and hopefully, it looks like the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 are going to move forward, and hopefully, they stay the course there. If they're able to play, kids are going to be watching them every single weekend. They're not going to be watching, these other programs play from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. So I think it can have a tremendous impact. I don't know about, a lot of decommitments. I've been saying we're probably going to see more decommitments than ever before, even before this happened, just because so many kids weren't able to take visits during the spring, and decisions are there's different opinions now on certain schools. Maybe coaches are going to leave after the season. I think we're going to see a lot of decommitments regardless of this whole situation. But it's certainly going to be something that everyone's going to be watching extremely closely, really over the next 6 months. What's going to happen between now and in February. I think we could see a major change throughout the entire country.
All right, we got one from Class of 21 Savage asking about the new long snapper that committed to Alabama. Can you explain to everybody kind of the commitment you mentioned on the message board? It looks like a preferred walk-on. Obviously, that wouldn't go against the numbers.
Yeah, it won't go against the scholarship numbers, just the overall team numbers. So nothing to really worry about there. Carter Short, one of the top long snappers in the country. We know that Alabama missed out. They only offered one long snapper this year. That was Rocco Underwood out of Lake Mary High School. He recently committed to Florida. So I don't think Alabama had any plans on offering anyone else. I think they were really high on Rocco Underwood, but I think they also like Carter Short a lot as well. He's an in-state kid from a top program, so he's getting elite coaching over at Hoover High School. So I think they were really excited to get him on board as just an invited walk-on.
All right. Earlier this week, you saw that, or a couple days ago, was Jason Marshall, who Alabama had targeted, committed to Florida. Where do things stand now with Alabama and their, them seeking out defensive backs? I know you talked about Kool-Aid, Terry Arnold, and kind of just give an overview of kind of the Jason Marshall situation.
Yeah, as we kind of had been saying for the last month or so, it was really trending towards Jason Marshall staying in the state of Florida. I keep seeing people say, "Oh, Bama just." Everybody thought Alabama was getting him. Well, we didn't. We've been saying that he was trending towards staying in the state of Florida for the last month or so. Even though we did think, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, we thought Alabama was in pretty good shape, but then it all kind of started trending back towards him staying in state. And we had heard that his mom was really hoping that he was going to stay in state. And I think that's eventually what won him over. But we were, in the last week or so, week and a half, we had been hearing a lot of talk about Miami. And we saw a lot of Miami coaches 2 weekends ago tweet about something big happening. And there was a lot of talk that it was going to be Marshall announcing his commitment to Miami. It didn't happen. We kept thinking, all right, it's going to happen eventually. It's going to happen eventually. Well, it never did. One of his teammates, Leonard Taylor, committed to Miami last Thursday. We thought, well, this is about to happen. He's about to announce for Miami within the next couple of days. And then on, I believe it was Sunday, announced his commitment to Florida. So kind of throwing everybody off, because even talking to our Florida publisher, he even said that all he was hearing was Miami. So he kind of threw everybody in for a loop there. Will Alabama continue recruiting him? We'll see. I mean, like I said, Alabama currently has 3 defensive back commitments, potentially going to get their 4th this weekend in Kyrie Jackson. Still some big names out there. Terry Arnold is a major target for Alabama. Kool-Aid, JaQuincy McKinstry, major target. Alabama also really likes, a couple guys out of Louisiana, Sage Ryan and Jordan Gilbert. So, it may kind of depend on what happens with those guys if they decide to commit soon. Alabama could potentially have, 5, maybe even 6 defensive back commitments within the next month or so. So, it may really kind of cause them to slow down in still pursuing Jason Marshall. But we'll continue to monitor it, continue to see what happens. But I think regardless, he's going to end up staying in state. He's committed to Florida. If he decides to flip, maybe it's to Miami.
All right, Dorsey up next. Have we lost Brian Thomas to LSU? So instead, we're getting Malcolm Johnson. So obviously asking about the wide receiver position, and Brian Thomas is certainly a key target, as is Malcolm Johnson, who we talked about earlier this week on our Daily Nugget Report.
Yeah, I want to kind of be clear about some things. I've been hearing this, in the last week that Kyrie Jackson was going to, a lot depended on, Jason Marshall. If Jason Marshall ended up committing to Alabama, that Kyrie Jackson didn't have a spot. And if Jason Marshall went elsewhere, then Kyrie Jackson had a spot. Well, there was no truth to that. Kyrie Jackson was always a key target for Alabama. And the same goes for Malcolm Johnson and Brian Thomas. These are two guys that Alabama has recruited extremely hard. They love both of these guys a lot. And as I kind of said, with Kyrie Jackson, with Robbie Oots and Jalen Sheed earlier, it's going to kind of depend on who commits first. I think Alabama holds both of these guys in very high regard. Now, a lot of people have said, well, Julio Jones talked to Brian Thomas. Well, he did, and Brian Thomas is certainly an elite player, somebody that Alabama wants. They want to get him on board, but they also love Malcolm Johnson. Malcolm Johnson is a guy who runs a 10.3 100 meter. He's one of the fastest kids in the country. I mean, you pair him up with Christian Leary, you have a duo of the two fastest wide receivers in the country. Something you really can't pass up on those two guys. So I think as of right now, it really comes down to who's going to commit first. Is it going to be Malcolm Johnson or is it going to be Brian Thomas? Malcolm Johnson, you look on his player profile page right now, he's 100% predicted to Maryland. Well, the only guy who's predicted him to Maryland, it's only one guy. It's a Maryland publisher who made that prediction months ago. So I really wouldn't pay too much attention to that because Malcolm Johnson just put out his top 5 last week, and it was all SEC schools: Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M. So, I would certainly, not Texas A&M, Florida. Those are the 5 schools that he has decided to focus in on. I think Alabama certainly got a good chance with him. I know Auburn's, strongly in the mix. I don't think he's going to end up at Florida. That's the one school that I'm not as confident about. I think all the other schools have a chance with him, but it could easily end up coming down to an Alabama and Auburn recruiting battle for Malcolm Johnson. But with Brian Thomas, I think he's going to wait a while. I don't see him making a decision anytime soon. He has a top 2 of Alabama and LSU, but he also, if you expand that to his top 4, Texas A&M, Georgia. Those are 2 schools he really wants to visit, 2 schools that have done a great job recruiting him. If he can visit those programs, they're going to have a chance. But as of right now, still a tight battle between Alabama and LSU. But as I said, it's going to come down to who commits first between those 2 guys.
All right. Hoop Ninja in with another question. Is Alabama still recruiting Jagger Burton?
Yeah, Jagger Burton, Alabama's still staying in contact with him. Kyle Flood, still keeping an open line of communication. But, you look at Alabama's offensive line class right now with 4 offensive line commitments with TJ Ferguson, the Brockermeyer twins, and also J.C. Latham. You got a great offensive line class so far. Probably only going to take one more. Alabama's not going to take 6 offensive linemen. I keep seeing people say, well, they could potentially fit 6. They're not going to fit 6. It's going to be 5 or potentially even 4. They may just sign the 4 guys that they have committed right now. Amarius Mims is going to wait until October the 14th. He was going to initially announce on August the 15th, but decided to wait. That'd have been fun covering Amarius Mims, Kyrie Jackson, and Monkel Goodwin on Saturday. He was originally supposed to commit then, but decided to push things back. So I think as of right now, I think Alabama's just going to wait, see what happens with Amarius Mims, and kind of go from there. Still a lot of guys that are out there. Tristan Lee out of Virginia, William Griffin Parker, currently scheduled to announce on September 4th. If I had to make a prediction, I don't think it's going to be to Alabama just because I think Alabama is going to wait until and to see what happens with Mims. But, there's still some other guys out there. Eric Cade out of Texas, also Wyatt Millam, who's committed to West Virginia. I think, Alabama would love to, try to get him back on campus if they can this fall. So as of right now, I just don't see Jagger Burton in this class.
All right, moving forward, and we appreciate all the comments right here on BamaInsider.com. Hoop Ninja with some great questions. You post a great question. I'm going to put it up. Here we go again. Hoop Ninja is asking, who will be our last linebacker commit? So who will be Alabama's last linebacker commitment?
Well, if Alabama gets a fifth linebacker commitment, I think they really hope that it's Xavier Sorey. That's really the one guy that they're heavily pursuing right now that they really want to add. I don't think a decision's going to happen anytime soon. He has a top five, all SEC top five: Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and Auburn, Florida. 100% predicted to Alabama right now. I don't know how many people have made those predictions. Maybe just one or two guys throwing in predictions. I don't know if I would I haven't made a prediction just yet. I don't know if I would put Alabama. I think Alabama is very high on his list. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's very close. I think Georgia's in it. I think Florida's in it. I think all those schools have a good chance to land him, and I think a lot's just going to depend on kind of how things go moving forward. He's been recruited by South Sincere, kind of throughout the whole process, but he just recently transferred to IMG Academy. So now you have, one of the best recruiters in the country, in addition to South Sincere recruiting him, and Charles Huff. So I think Alabama's going to have a chance, especially with two current Alabama commitments on the IMG roster. So you got two guys that are heavily trying to recruit him to join them in Tuscaloosa. So we'll see what happens there. But Xavier Sorey certainly the key guy there. Now another guy who I've mentioned a few times. I don't know if he's going to end up being a linebacker, brought in as a linebacker, jack linebacker, defensive end. Christian Zachary out of Carrollton High School in Georgia. Got to really watch. I think he's, he's certainly a kid that we've started to mention a good bit the last couple of weeks, and a kid that I could easily see in Alabama's class. Guy that has great highlight film, and I think recruited more as a jack than anything else. So that's another name to kind of keep an eye on.
All right, I want to kind of elaborate. If you could just touch on, talk a little bit more about Christian Zachary. I know you mentioned him a couple times in terms of some guy that could be somewhat of a sleeper to watch it for. Can you kind of discuss who's recruiting him and kind of a little bit of backstory? Because we really haven't heard much about Christian Zachary.
Yeah, no, we hadn't really talked about him because the biggest thing is he keeps pretty quiet on the recruiting front. Doesn't really talk much. Missed most of his junior season due to an injury. So, the spring was going to be a big evaluation, emphasis for him. And unfortunately, nobody was able to get out to see him. But I know Chad Simmons did a feature with him earlier this week on Rivals, and great interview. He talked about how he had a great conversation with Nick Saban last week on the phone. So obviously, Alabama's strongly interested in him. And from what I've heard, if Alabama can find a spot and has room, they would certainly welcome him in this class.
A lot of people are asking about Sage Ryan. I mean, if you can go into Sage Ryan, maybe provide a little bit of insight on the Sage Ryan, because we have several questions about Ryan coming in.
Yeah, well, I think everyone kind of just assumes he's going to end up going to LSU, and that's kind of my feeling as well. I do think Alabama's has put themselves in position to be in his top two, top three. It was kind of early on in LSU Clemson recruiting battle for him, but he ended up visiting Tuscaloosa for junior day. One of the few prospects who was able to visit Alabama this year. So he ended up visiting Alabama and really liked it a lot. They did a great job kind of selling him on the Xavier McKinney role here in the future. But I think with his connections to LSU, his cousin Kevin Falk, former LSU running back, now the running backs coach at LSU, recruiting him, proximity to Baton Rouge, I think it's going to be just too tough to overcome. I think he ends up going to LSU.
All right. This is a good one coming in. What's up, Daniel? Thank you so much for the question. More likely to happen, a quarterback commit or a running back commit in this class?
That's an easy one for me. The quarterback commitment. I think quarterback is a definite, definitely going to happen. Still trying to figure out who that's going to be. Alabama is going to have to flip somebody. As of right now, they don't really have any offers out there to anybody that's not committed. All the offers are out there to guys who are committed somewhere. So, Luke Altmaier from Starkville, Mississippi, who's currently committed to Florida State. Jalen Milroe from Texas, committed to Texas, and also, another guy I'd kind of keep an eye on. Now, I think, excuse me, I think the focus is mainly on Milroe and Altmaier at this point. But if both of those guys end up saying, we're solid, we're not going to visit, thank you for recruiting us, but, we're not going to flip. Another guy to watch out for is Ty Keys, dual threat quarterback out of the state of Mississippi. recently committed to Tulane, but I think he committed to Tulane just because some of the bigger schools are set at quarterback right now. He's still kind of waiting on Alabama, but I think if we potentially see Luke Altmaier and Jalen Milroe say they are solid and closing the door, we could potentially see an offer go out to Ty Keys here in the upcoming months.
Wow, interesting. All right, thank you for joining us tonight on BamaInsider.com. Now is a great time to post your questions for Andrew Bone. I'll definitely read those out to him as we move forward. Got another one coming in from Ronnie asking about Kamari Lassiter.
Yeah, very good in-state player, American Christian down in Tuscaloosa. I do think he ends up potentially going to Auburn, maybe even Georgia. I think those two schools are high on his list. Probably lean more towards Auburn right now. I think with Alabama's defensive back situation, as I mentioned earlier, currently 3 defensive back commitments, potentially adding a 4th this weekend with Kool-Aid, with Terry Arnold, Jordan Gilbert, all those guys still out there. I just think it's going to be tough for Alabama to be able to fit Kamari Lassiter in this class. Great prospect, great athlete, guy that I really like a lot, but I think he ends up going elsewhere just because I think Alabama won't have room.
All right. What about Jeremiah Williams? I mean, we talked a lot about him a couple months ago, and it seems like things might be cooling off.
Yeah, I think, kind of the similar situation with Alabama having 4 linebacker commitments already in Ian Jackson and Kendrick Blackshire, Dallas Turner, Deontay Lawson. It's just going to be tough for Alabama to fit him in, with Xavier Sorey, who's really very high on Alabama's wish list, has been on Alabama's wish list for a very long time, and got the ability to play multiple positions. I think they're going to wait on Xavier Sorey before they really push for another linebacker in this class. But whoever gets Jeremiah Williams is going to be extremely excited because he's an outstanding prospect. I think he's got a chance to be an all conference, all American type player. And I think if Alabama didn't have a commitment from maybe one of the 2 in-state linebackers, he would certainly have a spot. And I don't want to say he doesn't have a spot, but I just think it's going to be really tough for Alabama to add another linebacker that's not named Xavier Sorey right now.
All right, moving on the show. Looks like, hey, Paul, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate the super chat.
Yeah. We missed all the commitments.
Yeah. All right. Bone, we're starting to talk about some of these class of 22 guys. And thank you again, Paul. Samuel is asking, has Alabama truly made a serious run at Emmanuel Henderson and Tanner Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, they're on Alabama's, board for next year. I don't really know right now extremely how high they are on Henderson. I think they've offered him, they like him, but I think at the same time, they're trying to figure out what position is he going to play in college. Is he going to be a running back? Is he going to be a receiver? Is he potentially going to play on the defensive side of the ball? I think he wants to play running back. I mean, very talented. It reminds me a lot of Kerryon Johnson coming out of high school. He's not as big as TJ Yeldon coming out of high school, but kind of similar style of running back. And I remember TJ coming out of high school. Alabama wasn't sure what position he was going to play until the spring before his senior year. Alabama kind of figured like he's definitely a running back. Early on they had kind of recruited him as a receiver. So I think they're recruiting Emmanuel Henderson right now more as an athlete than anything else. But with Tanner Bailey, I think he's certainly one of Alabama's top 5 quarterback targets in this 2022 recruiting class. Now, he is an Auburn legacy, grew up an Auburn fan, but lives in Gordo. And Gordo, very close to Tuscaloosa. He's visited Alabama several times, not only as a recruit, but just going to different games, basketball games, baseball games, softball games. Been up to Tuscaloosa just several times. And we have a great interview on BamaInsider from I think it was a week or 2 ago that you can go back and read. Really talked very highly of Alabama, his relationship with Coach Sarkisian. And, I certainly think that Alabama's strongly in the mix for him at this point.
All right. And by the way, Samuel, that avatar is fire. I think that looks like Bryce Young kind of like slashing in. That's awesome. Nice work on that. Good graphics. I love graphics. By the way, I do all the graphics on BamaInsider.com. Just saying our graphics department does a pretty good job. All right. So we got Tristan Lay. What's the latest on Tristan? And if you can give Jacob the latest.
Yeah, Tristan Lay, one of the top offensive linemen in the country out of Fairfax, Virginia. kind of what I said earlier in terms of the offensive line recruiting. I think all eyes are just kind of on Amarius Mims right now. What's he going to do? Is Alabama willing to wait until October the 14th for him to make a decision, or will they potentially take another offensive lineman before then? I think they're going to wait because they're very happy with the offensive line unit they currently have in their class. But he's definitely talking to Alabama a good bit. Kyle Flood doing a great job maintaining that relationship. But I think everybody kind of understands, Alabama has recruited Amarius Mims for a very long time. Got to kind of wait and see what he wants to do. If you're only going to take 5 offensive linemen in this class, you have 4 currently committed. I think you got to wait and see what happens with Mims before anything else happens.
All right. Thank you for joining us tonight on BamaInsider.com. Please remember to hit the like button right now. Appreciate that. That goes a long way. So even if you're not a super chat member or, you're not in the loyalty club, it's all good. If you just hit the like button, that sincerely appreciates our channel grow. And if you're wondering what a super chat is, I know a lot of people are like, what's a super chat? It's basically a tip. So you go in there and hit the $ button, and that goes right back to the staff. So as you know, Andrew Bone does a fantastic job. So got to keep the big guy fed. You know how it goes. Moving on in the show, a couple more questions coming in. Thank you so much for our last question. Let's see. Kind of going through, and let's see what else we got here. Well, we'll wait for a couple more. Hey, what's up, Sean? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it,
man. Bone, as we kind of turn the page to the class of 2022, what does the in-state prospects look like from the state of Alabama? Marquee targets. You talked about Tanner Bailey a little bit. Other guys that Alabama might have their eye on as we start to turn the page to 2022.
Yeah, Tanner Bailey is certainly a top target. And Alabama already has 2 in-state linebacker commitments, both rated as 4 stars by Rivals.com. Robert Woodyard from Williamson High School and Jeremiah Alexander from Thompson High School. So already a really strong start to this 2022 recruiting class. Very interested to kind of see, what's going to happen moving forward. Who's going to end up being, key targets. Will Emmanuel Henderson end up being a priority target for Alabama? I certainly think he's on the wish list. Curtis Perry, defensive lineman out of Park Crossing High School. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with a couple of guys who have brothers on Alabama's team right now. Riley Quick is Pierce Quick's younger brother. Plays on both sides of the ball. As an offensive lineman and defensive lineman, a little undersized right now as an offensive lineman. How much is he going to grow over the course of the next year? He's currently about 250 pounds. So very interested to see how much bigger he gets. And then Caden Story, Christian Story's younger brother, plays on the defensive line at Lynette High School. Another guy that we're going to be watching very closely over the course of the next few months.
All right. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. How about this one? This one's coming in from Hoop Ninja. And by the way, thank you very much, Sean. We really appreciate it. How about this one from Hoop Ninja? Hoop Ninja, man, they're good. I like the questions Hoop Ninja brings. Who's the most underrated commit in this class, and when will the Rivals rankings be updated?
Well, that's a great question because, I think there's a lot of kids in the class that are underrated. A lot of kids that didn't get a chance to get seen, during the spring and the Rivals rankings. I think the update's coming out actually next week. But I think the toughest thing for the Rivals team to do is, there still hasn't been any evaluations. And, I know we've talked about how this, big recruiting updates or big rankings update is going to come, but there really hasn't been anything to evaluate on. And I think a lot of these analysts are still kind of hesitant to move a guy up or move a guy down because they want to see him a little bit more. They want to see him this fall. As long as high school football happens, there's a lot of analysts who want to go out and evaluate kids. But I think when you're talking about most underrated, you have to look at Devontae Smith, 3-star cornerback out of Cincinnati. From what I've heard from different people that I trust, he's one of Alabama's top 5 defensive back prospects in the entire country. I think Alabama is extremely high on him, and they really like him a lot. Feel like he's a big time impact player. Another 3-star in this recruiting class that I really like a lot is Kedaris Callaway. He's 6 feet tall, 210 pounds, runs a 4.50 40. Had an unbelievable junior season. had just under 1,000 yards receiving, but had 11 interceptions on defense. Mississippi, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but all their top players usually get ranked in December, or in January when the final rankings update comes out, because you finally get a chance to see them at the Alabama Mississippi All-Star game. A lot of analysts don't go into Mississippi, evaluate these kids. And I think they do maybe once or twice a year, but they're not in there every single week or every single day like they are in the state of Georgia or Alabama or Louisiana or wherever it may be. Mississippi just kind of gets bypassed for some reason or another. But I think Kedaris Callaway certainly has a chance to move up in the rankings over the course. Maybe not next week, but certainly in the course of the next 6 months.
All right, good stuff, Hoop Ninja. Thank you so much for all your questions tonight. How about this one, Bone? Any other players on Flip Watch as we look forward to the end of Alabama's really dynamic class? Who are some other guys that you're kind of watching, especially with everything that's going on in college football? Who are some other guys on potential Flip Watch as we move towards the middle of August?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Alabama didn't get another flip. I think there was maybe 7 guys in last year's recruiting class who either flipped or were once committed elsewhere. Now, it may be a situation where we might see a kid reopen his recruitment and then commit to Alabama, kind of like what we saw with Devontae Smith, a couple of, or I guess about a month ago. Kedaris Callaway flipping from Mississippi State, but several guys that are still out there that have Alabama high on their list. I guess on the offensive side of the ball, you first have to look at the quarterback position with Luke Altmaier and Jalen Milroe. Alabama would love to flip one of those guys at some point. On the defensive line, Tyreek Sapp, currently committed to Florida, certainly a guy that Alabama's pressing for, and it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens at the linebacker position, at the defensive end position, because there's so many defensive end targets who are out there. Tumise Adelie decommitted from Ohio State today. Tyreek Sapp has Alabama in his top 5, but is committed to Florida right now. I think Alabama's going to have a shot with him. He plays at St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, teammates with Dallas Turner, Corey Foreman, JT Tuamola, Shamar Turner, Chambry Jackson. So many defensive ends. You got to think they're going to get at least 2 more. I do think I'm predicting they end up getting Monkel Goodwine this weekend, but I think they'll end up getting 2 more even after him. So a lot of guys out there, including Tyreek Sapp. And those are kind of the main flip targets that we're keeping a close eye on as of right now.
All right, good stuff, Bone. We got Chris checking in from Hawaii. What's up, Chris? I haven't heard from you in a little while, buddy. So thank you for checking in. I know that we have a great following from Hawaii. So thank you so much for joining in tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think. Oh, how about this one too? Canada. What's up? Our friendly neighbor to the north, Canada. What's up? We see you. Thank you so much for joining us, Zach. Bone, I mean, has Alabama, when you look at the class of 2021, and by the way, post your recruiting questions inside the comment box. We'll be here for a little bit longer. So if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. We'll put it on the show, and I'll ask Bone. As we look at this class, Alabama's on the verge of landing 2 more commitments, possibly this weekend. Is there a certain position of need as we round out this class of 2021?
Well, I think, if you're looking at on the offense side of the ball, I mean, they've met some key needs there in terms of, getting a great group of wide receivers, still trying to get another one, a great group of offensive linemen, still trying to get another one. But, getting a tight end on board, I think is very important. They certainly want to add one. Getting a quarterback on board, they certainly want to add, one of those as well. Is this going to be a year where Alabama doesn't sign a running back? Very possible after signing 3 running backs in last year's class. There's still a lot of really good defensive ends out there. I mean, Alabama, in my opinion, wants to sign at least 3 defensive ends, and they don't have any currently committed. There's Monkel Goodwine's committing on Saturday. Will he commit to Alabama? We'll all find out then. And if he commits, I still think Alabama is going to try to sign at least 2 more. Defensive back wise, still trying to add a couple more elite corners to this class. Can they get Kyrie Jackson on board this weekend? Can they get Kool-Aid or Terrion Arnold on board? Remains to be seen, but I certainly think those are the primary positions that they're recruiting.
All right. I just wanted to post Anthony's question on the board. He had asked a question. I think you covered it, but I didn't want to I just wanted, no hard feelings, Anthony. There's a lot of comments on there. So no hard feelings, buddy. But I think Bone took care of you. How about this one coming in from Sean? Any running backs? I know you mentioned Kamar Wheaton several times. I mean, Alabama's loaded at the running back position every single year this year, especially. Any running back targets to know other than Kamar Wheaton?
Yeah, I mean, Kamar Wheaton's kind of the main guy Alabama's going after, and it's very possible that if Kamar Wheaton ends up going to Texas or Oklahoma, that Alabama may not take a running back. But a couple other guys kind of keep an eye on. Alton Mccaskill, who's out of Texas as well. He picked up an offer a few months ago. Certainly has some interest in Alabama. We'll see if Alabama really presses hard for him. Armani Goodwin, an in-state running back from Hewitt-Trussville, is currently committed to Auburn. Grew up an Auburn fan. I think it's going to be really tough for Alabama to flip him, especially without being able to take any trips to Tuscaloosa during the summer, and maybe not even in the fall. So we'll watch those guys pretty closely. But this could easily be a year where Alabama does not sign a running back.
All right. Good stuff, Bone. We got to take care of Paul Robinson. Even though you've talked about this a little bit before at the tight end position, Paul got here late to the show, provided us with a super chat. Bone, would Bama take Snead and Oots? You talked about that. So briefly kind of give Paul the update on the tight end position.
Yeah, Paul, Jalen Snead out of Olive Branch and Robbie Oots out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. I think it comes down to who commits first. I just don't think Alabama's going to have room for two tight ends. If they potentially get two commitments this weekend, and Kyrie Jackson and Monkel Goodwine, who are currently predicting both of those guys to end up at Alabama, that's going to be 18 commitments. I just can't see them taking, two tight ends right now in this recruiting class. I think it comes down to who commits first between those two guys, but I think both of them currently have committable offers. I know we've talked about Oots a lot over the course of the last few months, and we hadn't really talked about Snead a lot. We knew he got offered a couple months ago, but I also thought Robbie Oots would have been committed by now, but he's not committed. So I think it comes down to who commits first between the two.
All right. Kind of as we wind down to these last 10 minutes, let's talk about some of these assistant coaches at Alabama that have been doing such a great job on the recruiting trail, especially Charles Huff. Talking about the prospects that he's helped land from the class of 2021. And I mean, it looks like he could be, the top recruiter in the entire country this season. Do you feel that same way, Bone?
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly has a great head start. We'll see how it kind of ends up, and obviously you got to wait and see. Make sure that those guys stay true to their word and stay committed until the very end. So we'll see what happens. But I think he's done a tremendous job, and certainly one of the front runners for National Recruiter of the Year. The guys that he's been able to get on board is an impressive haul. Dallas Turner, Ja'Cory Brooks, J.C. Latham, not A.J. Hall, J.C. Latham. Then flipping Devontae Smith, Damon Payne. It's been a tremendous run for Coach Huff, but I think there's some other guys who've done a really good job this year as well. I think Jeff Banks has done a great job, getting Christian Leary, who nobody really, when Christian Leary committed to Alabama, nobody was really thinking he was going to Alabama. Everybody thought he was going to Florida or Oklahoma or maybe even Auburn. Jeff Banks was able to go in there, get a big commitment from him, and also landed Kendrick Blackshire and A.J. Hall. So great job so far with Jeff Banks. I think Freddie Rhodes is starting to find a pretty good groove right now, and we'll see how the rest of the class ends up going.
All right, good stuff. We've had a great show. Tons of questions that have come in. If you want the rest of our coverage, you can go to BamaInsider.com. We're always there answering your recruiting questions or team questions, whatever you got. Come to BamaInsider.com. The promo code for the free 30-day trial is simply Roll Tide. It's one word together. You can always email me, Kyle at BamaInsider.com. Make sure that you're taken care of. I know, there might be issues from time to time figuring out your username, your password. I'm here to help you to make sure that you have the best experience on BamaInsider.com. We know there's plenty of options out there, but we hope that this show can kind of provide some insight into what we deliver to our customers on a daily basis. Andrew Bone, certainly the best in the business when it comes to recruiting. Certainly kills it. So you can get that type of coverage from him every single day. You don't have to wait until every other Tuesday. Might take a question or two, and then we'll catch you next time back at BamaInsider.com. So thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it. What's up? We see you. I guess, Bone, maybe we'll end on this. People feeling that maybe Tumisa Adele might be a lock to Florida. Looks like Florida might be building a little bit of momentum. As we talked about earlier in the show, Jason Marshall did commit to Florida. I mean, it's still early. There's still plenty of time, but are you feeling that same way that Tumisa Adele might be pointing towards the Gators?
Well, I think Florida's in it. I wouldn't say that. Speaking to some people in our industry, it certainly seems like he's going to keep things pretty open for right now, and not going to rush into making a decision. I think Florida's in it, but I also think Alabama's strongly in it, and I think Texas A&M's in it. Texas A&M, certainly a school to kind of watch out for in his recruitment. But I think all three schools very high on his list, but I don't think anything's happening anytime soon. And Florida does have some momentum right now, but I think Alabama's got a lot of momentum as well, and they're recruiting extremely well, and he's been a key target for them for a long time.
All right, good stuff. Well, thank you thank you very much, everyone, for following us tonight on our coverage right here on BamaInsider.com. We always appreciate getting together with you on Tuesday night. Bone, do you have a good time?
Oh yeah, it was always fun catching up with people. Thank you so much for the super chats. I mean, that's that means a lot to us for somebody to come on here and give us a little bit of tip. So really appreciate it, and hope to see. I know that some of you guys aren't subscribers to Bama Insider, but hope to see you guys on there. Be sure to tell us you've been watching the show on here and wanted to join the site. So hope to see you over there on BamaInsider.com this week.
All right. Yeah. Medic Man, what's up? We see you. New member to our loyalty club. So thank you so much. All that stuff helps. And Clarence, we see you. Roll Tide, buddy. Thank you so much for being here. A lot of love on our channel. Almost 400 people tonight watching live. So awesome stuff. Thank you so much. Tons of feedback from you guys. You guys make the show possible. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch up with you at BamaInsider.com. From beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, he's Andrew Bone, Kyle Henderson. Stay tuned. Saturday's almost here. It could be a big day for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Thank you very much for watching tonight, and we'll see you soon.